So Jam, thank you so much for participating in this 1851 Franchise Development Website Awards and for being a judge and giving your time today for this video.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So first, just to kick things off, wanted to kind of get some overall feedback as you were looking into these websites and taking a look at what's out there, what brands are putting forward on their FD sites. Was there anything that stood out to you overall as either a trend or something that brands are doing really well that maybe other companies might want to consider adding in, or just really your overall thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we looked at a lot of different websites, and I think they ran the gamut. Some that were fairly simple, some that were a little bit more complex. But overall, from the last couple of years since I've been taking part in this evaluation, I'm finding that more and more websites are adopting putting more content as opposed to less content. And so there's definitely been that trend of seeing more of that happening. And I think more and more franchisors are also realizing that having a dedicated franchise development website is the way to go, not just a page that kind of hangs off of their main website as an afterthought, but rather a dedicated website that talks to their franchise candidates.
Absolutely. And yeah, agreed on that content front. I think that we're finding more and more that, especially as people are doing their own research on brands before they maybe inquire, want to go through that process, there needs to be enough information for them to get hooked and be interested to go through that process of calls and emails and even a discovery day. So I think that that content aspect is definitely something that we're seeing as a standout on some of these websites that are, performing at the top of this list.
Correct.
Absolutely. And what would you say, maybe it's content, maybe it's something else, would be that number one thing that brands should ensure is on their FD website to make sure that, they're reaching, the right people and who they want to hopefully have inquire on their site?
I gave some thought to this question because I could say the normal things. Make sure the lead form is there, make sure the content is there, make sure there's engaging video there. But I wanted to make sure that there's something that I find is being missed by a lot of people that we're speaking with that are franchisors, which is that they're not leveraging the 2 pixels that are available to be added to your website. And I'm specifically referring to the Google retargeting pixel, the Facebook remarketing pixel. These are small pieces of code that you install onto your website. You as a franchise brand, you're working really hard to drive people to your franchise website, whether that be through buying portal leads, buying advertisement, doing promotions, going to trade shows, whatever that case may be. So you want to make sure you give yourself a second chance to touch those people on their medium of choice and on their device. And this is especially powerful if you can intent base your marketing message depending on what pages of your website users were interacting with the most. So if you could have that level of business intelligence and know that somebody was interested maybe in the financing portion of your franchise development website, how would you cater your marketing message to match their intent? So I would say that the only way to build that level of intelligence is by having these 2 pixels on the website so that you can have the information that's necessary, that you can utilize.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think that's something that on the consumer side is starting to be nailed more and more. It's, the ongoing joke of you mention one thing and all of a sudden you're getting ads for that tailored specific, experience or product. But now on the FD side, from a business advantage, that technology exists. So I agree that it would be naive of brands to not start adopting that and seeing how they can, give people the exact information that they want instead of hounding them and even potentially discouraging them from going through the process because they're being overwhelmed with all this information that they might not necessarily be ready for yet.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And how do you think that kind of overall these brands is it just engaging more of this technology and these, new capabilities that we have? Is that how brands are truly winning at their digital marketing strategies these days? Or what else is kind of standing out to you as someone, that's working in the field that brands are doing really well right now that's going to help them in the years to come?
I mean, at the basic level, there's a couple of ways in which brands are generating leads to their franchise development website and really winning at digital marketing. Number one is at the basic level, search engine marketing or search engine optimization, including social media. This is the production of blogs and content stories about their franchise candidates who are now successful franchisees. So if they actually had a mom who was a nurse and now empowered herself and started her own business, and she offers care to seniors in their community, and she's a successful franchise owner, they want to feature that story and share that all across social media channels, including their consumer-facing channels. So don't just have a dedicated franchise development branded Facebook page. Nobody wants to follow that page. People are not interested in that. People are interested in the consumer side of your business. And if you can pepper in your franchise development stories on your consumer brand pages, you're going to do well. And the reason is a lot of franchise candidates oftentimes are consumers of your products and services before they decide to actually engage your franchise development side and maybe even open their own business with you. So that's one aspect, which is kind of the SEO and social media. And brands that are really doing well are telling those stories about successful franchisees in their, in their network, out on their social media channels. The second portion is a more of a targeted paid approach, which is pay-per-click advertising. And so pay-per-click advertising is essentially the ability to buy and run ads on a variety of different platforms. Pay-per-click can be done on Google using search and display campaigns. It can be done on Facebook. It can be done on Instagram. It can be done on LinkedIn. So irrespective of where you're going out there and targeting candidates, the key is sometimes you've got to pay to have your message shown to the right candidate. And so these platforms allow a medium, a platform for you to go out there and select demographically who you want to target and hit those people up. But a lot of companies are starting to do that now, right? Like a lot of people know about running Facebook ads,
right.
But I think very few people are successful at it. And the reason being they're not split testing. They're not going out there and focusing on conversion rate optimization. They're not spending the time testing an orange color button as opposed to a blue colored button to request information. So really driving those conversions on dedicated landing pages that you're A/B split testing is what's separating the ones that are successful using digital marketing for franchise candidate lead gen, as opposed to the ones that are kind of just spending the money and not really getting an ROI.
Completely agreed. And there's a lot to be said too. If brands are doing these types of social ads and they're using this paid spend and they aren't testing what's working and what's not working, eventually what's going to happen if you're targeting one specific audience over and over again, feedback is going to start to be really negative about that ad because people are going to be frustrated. Like, why do I keep seeing this ad? And even though, if you're looking into a franchise, you're obviously going to be digging into a brand deeply and willing to put in that time. But the way the technology is right now, it also needs to be quick and convenient and tailored to what they want because it's what we expect now as consumers.
Exactly. You got to be very wary of banner burnout, right? So if you know that somebody has visited your site and then they came back in and they spent a little bit of time on a certain page or a certain section reviewing certain bits of information, you need to change your advertising to match that intent.
Absolutely. It's the digital footprint. It's overall, I completely agree. It's brand dev, it's consumer, it's everything coming together to tell this one cohesive story because people are going to notice if things look a little bit disjointed.
True.
Absolutely. And what do you think might be something, in addition to not having this consistent language across the board, the brands might be overlooking or anything that stood out as potentially being outdated or not necessarily helpful anymore when it comes to franchise development websites? Is there a trend that brands should kind of start shifting away from?
One of the things that we always ask clients that come in and they want to have franchise development websites overhauled is I ask, why do you feel that you need an overhaul on your website? And they cite a variety of reasons. And I find that oftentimes they've overlooked some of the key metrics. Like nobody's looking at the numbers in order to make the decisions on why they want to make changes to their website. And so sometimes you can ignore what the numbers are saying and you kind of go with what you feel looks good on a website. That's a mistake. You don't want to do that. Spend the time. And I think what brands are not doing is they're not spending the time doing keyword research to find popular phrases or topics that their franchise candidates are interested in. And if they spent that time doing that, they let some of the tools provide the metrics, and then they made their decisions on what to feature on the website. People I speak with, they just said, well, yes, we have analytics running on the website. We just never looked at it. So.
Yeah, right. The data isn't going to be helpful unless you're taking a look and learning from it.
Exactly.
And how do you think as, more of this data and information comes, available both on the business side and to the consumer in general, how do you think franchise development websites are going to continue evolving in the years to come? What's going to be that next trend that takes over?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about how things are changing. And, just consider for a second the process of buying a car, right? Like the way people used to buy cars is way different now than it was 15 years ago. Now people, they can go build the car. They can go out there and select the interior, the exterior, the type of paint they want, the color, the wheels, the accessories that they want to have added. And they essentially build and self-serve to go out there and get a vehicle down to what the financing is going to cost before they engage with a representative at the dealership. So that's how that industry has changed. And so if we took a little bit of learnings from that, we find that franchise candidates will move towards more of a self-serve approach to their research when they're looking for franchises. It'll be on their time, it'll be on their device, and it'll be on demand. Most individuals, they're visual learners. So having a franchise candidate portal, if I can call it that,
Yeah.
which is really an extension of your sales process and your franchise development website, that you can house information in, that you can house videos in, that you can house PDFs or PowerPoints, or that you can have a chat feature to engage your audience in. I think that if you went out there and invested time and effort in building that visual experience for a franchise candidate where they can almost self-serve at their pace, on their device, on demand, I think you're going to be setting yourself apart from what everybody else is kind of doing. Most importantly, the metrics, right? We're going to go back to that. If a franchise candidate spent a lot of time reviewing the financing options available section of your candidate portal, and you have that intelligence, you have those metrics, then when your development rep actually gets them on the phone, guess one of the first things that they're going to be talking about, should be that financing section, because you can see in the metrics that was what was important to the candidate. And so I think that going towards that self-serve approach will really go out there and empower the user, which is where the trend is going, and allow our development reps to give them the intelligence that they need in order to, again, answer specific questions based on behaviors that these candidates are undertaking inside a franchise candidate portal.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's advantageous for both the consumer, as you said. That's the trend. People want to be able to do their own research before they're, willing to go through a series of 5 or 6 calls with a sales rep. And then it also, I think, it benefits the brands, because ultimately their sales team then isn't wasting time by doing these calls with people that ultimately might, want to hit that unsubscribe button because they're being, harassed or stalked too much by these brands if they're not quite ready yet. So I agree. I think that it's important to be able to kind of tailor that if there's someone that wants to remain a little bit more anonymous or someone that's ready to dive in. It's definitely going to be helpful on both sides.
And if you tie that in with some marketing automation where that information can be parsed to that individual without involving somebody pushing a button, doing it every single time, I think you're going to be able to scale your franchise development in ways using technology that today that people are not doing. So really, it will change the function of that franchise development website and make it more of a sales support tool as opposed to a lead generation tool, which I think where most of the websites are today.
Yep, completely agreed. Well, Jem, thank you so much for being a judge and providing your feedback. I think it's all great insights. So excited to see the issue play out over the course of the month.
Thank you so much for your time. Hope you have a great day.